Good afternoon. It's Tuesday, March 24th, 2020. And since you can't come to City Hall, we're coming to you today to help you learn how the City of Albany is responding to the novel coronavirus COVID-19 and explain Governor Kate Brown's executive order to Oregonians to stay home in order to stay safe. With us today is Albany Mayor Sharon Konopa and City Manager Peter Troedsson. Mayor?
Thank you, Marilyn, and hello, everyone in Albany. And we hope that you're able to listen and be able to kind of hear some of the concerns that we've been hearing from citizens in our community, and so we can be able to maybe answer some questions. We know this has been sort of some unsettling times that we're all faced with right now, and we're kind of have entered some uncharted waters, not just in Albany, it's our state, our nation, and the whole world. And we know there's just been a lot of questions. I have personally been receiving a lot of questions, and I welcome them. I want to be able to help people be able to get their concerns addressed. There's many things that we are just sort of kind of trying to be able to find out what the answers are as we go along these uncharted waters. I do want you to know we're not the only community being faced with this, or the only state. I have heard from people that I know throughout the world that are actually have way more cases of the COVID-19 that we're experiencing, and they have unfortunately had a lot more deaths too. We don't want that to happen. We don't want that to happen in our country, in our state, and let alone in Albany. That's why we're really following the governor's orders and for everybody to stay indoors, stay safe, and do not go out unless you have to, if there's an essential service that you're in need of. So that's sort of kind of our message. We really want to be able to get out. This is very important. If we don't all follow the rules of staying indoors, this is going to go on longer. And right now it is affecting many households and many people's employment and many businesses. And we want to be able to get over this pandemic as soon as we can. So it's very important for everybody to be able to stay indoors. I welcome everyone to also look, and you can get online and see the governor's for the state of Oregon on their website, and it's Executive Order number 20-12. So this is what came out yesterday. I've had a lot of questions about preventative measures taking place in the workforce and in businesses. I've had businesses ask, are they able to stay open? And I've had workers that are concerned about their workplaces. So if you get on that executive order, it shows under workspace restrictions, this is 9, 10, and 11. And this is what pretty much states that every employer, you are to have a designated person that can be able to implement and enforce social distancing policies consistent with the guidance from the Oregon Health Authority. So a business can stay open. You just need to be able to follow those guidelines. And it's important if you are out and about or in the stores, you need to be able to keep your social distance too. So with that, Peter, did you want to?
Yes, good afternoon. And I'll echo the mayor's sympathy. This is a very, very difficult time for everybody, all of our neighbors. That's a difficult time for businesses in the community and indeed for city employees as well. We're doing the best that we can under the circumstances to continue to provide continuity of operations. So city functions will continue on with obvious limitations where necessary. And this afternoon, Marilyn will give us a few of the questions that she's received from members of the public, and we'll try to answer them as best we can. Now, we do plan to continue offering sessions like this in which you'll hear from other department directors, perhaps the police chief, fire chief, perhaps again from myself. So please do send us your questions. And Marilyn, what do you have for questions?
Well, for one thing, this is coming to you, of course, on Facebook, and a lot of our city information is on our website, cityofalbany.net/coronavirus, where we have links to the Oregon Health Authority, the Centers for Disease Control and control and prevention, and all city closures. Forgive me, this is our first time on the air, so I'm mumbling, but here we go. Referring to the city website, a lot of people don't have computers. Most people do, but some don't. And so how do those people get information?
Certainly. As Marilyn said, many of you, almost all people, have the ability to go to the website. And that's our preferred source of information. On that website, you'll find links to the Oregon Health Authority. You'll find links to Johns Hopkins. You'll find links to all sorts of helpful places for information. If you don't have a computer, you don't have access to the internet, you can dial 211, which will get you into an informational brokerage or people that will be able to answer your questions. And of course, you can always call us here at City Hall, and we'll do our best to answer the questions for you as well.
We have had questions from a number of people about utility bills. As you know, we provide drinking water and we take care of sewage when you flush, and we run those utilities for people, and we charge money for that because it costs money to keep water clean and make it clean again. People want to know if we're going to shut off their water or if they can stop paying their bills during this crisis.
And I can unequivocally say that we won't shut off anybody's water. As everybody recognizes, the water is essential when we're trying to control the spread of this virus. However, we do ask that if you're able to pay your bill, that you go ahead and do that. You can imagine that the resources to run this utility system, or all of our utilities, they come from our fees that we assess to the users of those systems. So we would ask that people pay them. If you can't, if you find yourself in a dire situation, please contact our utility billing staff, and they're always willing to help make arrangements. But there won't be any shutoffs during the course of this crisis.
And I'll kind of add to that, because I have had a lot of questions about immediately wanting us to sort of waive water and sewer fees. And I said, we're not to that point yet. It's been 1 week now since businesses have been shut down. So there hasn't been any new bills that have been brought, that have been sent out since this past week. So that is something that we will be looking at, but there has been no sort of policy of how we would implement that sort of, being able to give assistance over water and sewer. And it probably could end up being on a sort of a deferment, but I would recommend, though, is, if you are still working, that, you still have that obligation to make sure that you are able to pay those utilities. I think our other utility partners, like with Pacific Power, Northwest Natural Gas, a lot of them are also getting the word out that they're not going to shut off any service also. But I haven't seen any information out there of waiving any fees. So this is something that I don't think any utility company is really able to really address at this time. So
we've had a question from a couple of people asking what we are doing to help our homeless population.
Mm-hmm. And I've had quite a few questions over that. We do have a community paramedic with our fire department that's able to sort of work with our homeless shelters and making sure that they're keeping that social distancing, making sure that they're able to keep a safe environment. I do know our homeless shelters, this is their fundraising time of the year, and I saw that since now that they're unable to have their annual banquet, they are seeking donations too. So they could use some donations for the shelters to be able to keep them operating during these times. But and Community Services Consortium has also been working with the shelters also. So the social agencies are working together, but as things do arise, then we will be seeing how we can address that.
Since you mentioned our community paramedic, mm-hmm. I wanted to ask a question about that we've had from other people about why the firefighters and in some cases the police officers arrive at calls wearing goggles, masks, and gowns.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So, did you want to answer?
Yeah, I would just say that you can imagine that our first responders come into contact with many, many people during the course of their daily duties. So we don't have a very deep bench, so if we're to maintain their health and maintain their ability to continue to respond day after day, week after week, we have to make sure that they're protected. And there are standards for that protection, and we are attempting to meet all of those standards to maximize those protections. But as you've heard, there are shortages of PPE, or personal protective equipment. So that's a struggle that we're grappling with right now.
I have another question for Peter. While we have cut back on a number of services, including shutting down most of our city buildings to limit public and city employee contact, we still do have things going on to help people get through this time of shutdown and lockdown and dead boredom in some cases. Can you tell us about some of the things that the library and the Parks Department are doing to help people fight that?
Certainly. The library has taken the initiative to develop a number of videos oriented towards their younger patrons. Those are available on our website. A lot of things that we'll talk about are available through the city's website. So again, I'd recommend that highly to you. Parks, a lot of facilities, as Marilyn mentioned, as Mayor mentioned, have been closed. The senior center and the pool, the playgrounds and parks have been closed off. But medical people recognize that outdoor air and recreation is often very important for your physical health, your mental health, your emotional health. And you can take a walk in a park. However, we would ask that you observe all the social distancing guidelines that the governor has talked about and that the Oregon Health Authority have talked about. And remember that others out there might not be as confident as you might be, and they're quite worried about keeping distances, and we all ought to be worried about it and heed those distances.
A lot of people want to help out in some way. They'd like to make a donation, they would like to volunteer, they want to find others who have needs that they might help fulfill. How can they do that?
Sure. Again, on the city's website, Albany Recovers is a temporary link that we have. It's albanyrecovers.org. You can get to that through the website, and that attempts to match up people with needs to those who might be able to help them. People who have offers of time or funding or any other means of assistance with the needs for those forms of assistance. So that's I would recommend going to that site. And there are other sources as well, other places where you can contribute to the welfare of your community. And I would, again, that's the way we're going to get through this crisis, with all neighbors coming together to do it in strength, in numbers.
People still have business to do with City Hall. How can they do that while we're closed?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we are still monitoring email and phones. Many of our staff are teleworking, so they're working from home using information technology tools that we have. So you can certainly call the numbers that we have posted and speak to folks who are there to answer your questions, or send us emails. And there are other ways that you can get links through to Maryland through Facebook and through Nextdoor. So we're trying to maximize our communications options through this crisis.
Any closing statements that either of you would like to make? Peter?
Well, I would just, again, this is a tough time, and neighbor helping neighbor is really the way, in my mind, the way this resolves in a good way. The mayor talked about the importance of heeding the governor's executive order. Everybody has heard the phrase flattening the curve, and that is really the way in which we will avoid maxing out the system, the healthcare system that we have. So I would make a plea that people do heed that. Use common sense, use patience, and use the goodwill that you have in your heart to help your neighbors.
And I would just like to say too, I mean, this is something that, you know, we never thought in my lifetime that we would be dealing with this over a virus. I mean, we had 50 years now sent a man to, you know, men to the moon and back, and, you know, people can live up in the space or send robots to Mars, or, you know, there's even where we can, you know, our medical technology can even transfer an organ from one body to the next. Never thought a virus would be literally almost shutting down globally our whole world. But, you know, we have, I mean, if you think about other disasters, other states throughout our whole nation, they can have horrible hurricanes, tornadoes, that can end up in bad earthquakes. So we're able to still be in our homes, still be safe, still be healthy, still be able to have services to our home. So we just need to be able to get over this kind of big hurdle we're faced with, and that is the most important thing, is to stay home and be able to keep your distance from others. We'll get through this, folks. We will. It's just, it's going to just kind of do a setback for everyone, but we want everyone to be able to stay safe and stay healthy too.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Peter. This is Marilyn Smith, the Communications Officer for the City of Albany. Please be in touch with us via Facebook, by phone, by email. Let us know what's on your mind. We'll try as best we can to answer your questions. Thank you.
We're done. 19 minutes.